Golf Partner, the world's largest golf store network, offers more purchasing opportunities than anywhere else. With a dominant market share and a wider selection of quality secondhand golf clubs than our competitors, we make it easy for you to enjoy the game with affordable, top-quality equipment. Join us at golfpartnerusa.com and discover why we're the trusted choice for golf lovers worldwide. That's GOLFPARTNERUSA.com. Golf Partner. Are you ready to take control of your health? At 4U Health, we believe wellness and lab testing should be accessible, inclusive, and yes, fun. With our tech-powered at-home lab test, you save time and money while feeling your best. Say goodbye to long waits and office visits. Check your health on your own terms with 4U Health. Visit 4uhealth.com today and free yourself from traditional medicine. That's the number 4uhealth.com.
Thanks so much for tuning in to part 2 of this special edition of Final Days on Earth. When we left off in the last episode, I just finished speaking with J.T. Pickert, one of the party attendees who reached out to me after the season wrapped. Today, I want to share my conversation with a forensic expert who has experience with complicated hanging deaths, Dr. Mary Jimbelik from Syracuse, New York.
So asphyxia deaths are difficult and do require, thorough investigation.
We'll go through Dr. Jimbelik's opinions on Dammion's case, as well as hear about her own journey with a challenging death investigation.
The case came in as a suicide or as a potential suicide. It's never, officially labeled.
How did Dr. Jimbelik handle that investigation? And what can it tell us about possible avenues for further examination of Dammion's case?
In this case, I had a strong belief she was killed prior to being hung up, but I couldn't prove that.
Plus, I'm excited to announce that on May 10th, I'm launching Season 2 of Final Days on Earth with a brand new case that I'll reveal at the end of this episode. Stay tuned! From Cold Case Productions, this is Final Days on Earth, The Life and Death of Dammion Hurd. Episode 15, New Leads, Part 2. I'm your host, Claire Sanamaw. Thanks for listening. When I started this podcast, I said I would follow Dammion's story wherever it took me, and one of the places it led was to a criminologist in Australia. Dr. Claire Ferguson specializes in staged homicides and is one of the world's leading experts in the field. Her research highlighted several key areas of interest in Dammion's case, including the fact that his jewelry had been removed, there was no cash in his wallet, his car appeared to be ransacked, and he had recently been in a heated series of arguments. For an in-depth look at Dr. Ferguson's research and its relationship to Dammion's case, listen to Episode 13, Part 2, New Research, as we are only going to hit the highlights here.
One of the things that I'm often banging on about when I'm presenting this research to police is that generally the autopsy is not going to be particularly helpful in these types of cases. So generally speaking, you have offenders who will use the actual thing that caused the death, so the weapon or whatever, to stage the scene. And so what that means is that generally speaking, the findings from the autopsy don't really tell investigators anything that they don't already know. And so what does solve these cases generally is boots on the ground police work and thinking in detail about context. So that would be the main thing, I guess, is to not put all your eggs as an investigator in the autopsy basket or in the forensic evidence type of basket. The other main misconception that I see a ton is people saying, and offenders often bank on this actually, is investigators saying, or people involved saying, oh, but an offender wouldn't do that. A murderer wouldn't do that. That type of thinking can be very problematic because, as I said, the offender is hoping that investigators will think, oh, no one would go that far, or no one would bother doing that. And they sometimes bother for that specific reason.
In Dammion's autopsy, his cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation by hanging, and the manner was suicide. One of the suggestions Dr. Ferguson made to me for further analysis of Dammion's case was to contact a forensic pathologist. Dr. Ferguson was especially interested in the petechiae on Dammion's body and possible explanations for it.
Petechiae are pinpoint hemorrhages in the skin.
This is Dr. Mary Jimbelik.
They can be seen in the eyes and in the skin, in deaths that are caused by losing oxygen. You can see them more frequently.
Jimbelik is a retired forensic pathologist who served as chief medical examiner and clinical associate professor of pathology in Syracuse, New York.
I've performed thousands of autopsies, including their investigations to determine the cause and manner of death. And I have a special interest in staged death scenes as well, and published an article with Vernon Gephardt in Practical Homicide Investigation demonstrating that very thing in a hanging death.
The case Dr. Jimbelik is referring to appears in Chapter 22 of Practical Homicide Investigation. It deals with an 11-year-old girl who was found hanging from a dog chain tied to her bedpost.
The case came in as a suicide, or as a potential suicide. It's never, officially labeled. My feeling was it was a homicide, but I didn't have enough information to label it that way and proceed. I needed more information. And also there was some pushback that, how do you know this isn't a suicide? So I then invoked the right of all medical examiners to reach out for other professional opinion, Okay, maybe I'm not seeing something clearly here. So I did. I reached out to several nationally known and respected medical examiners and asked for their professional opinions on the case.
Dr. Jimbelik solicited 4 outside opinions from other medical examiners on the child's manner of death. They came back with 3 opinions of homicide and 1 suicide. That might sound like an overwhelming majority, but in the world of autopsies, it still left room for interpretation.
And so, based on the pushback, based on it wasn't unanimous, that I couldn't say within a reasonable degree of medical certainty, which is what I need to say when I sign something on a death certificate. I made the manner of death undetermined, which is always an option that medical examiners have that leaves the door open for suspicious, deaths of a suspicious nature, but you can't quite prove, which almost feels like that's where it was headed, with Dammion, but didn't get labeled that way.
Right.
Because that, none of us as medical examiners like to put it in a category which basically is like a shrug, I don't know, but it's not really when you say undetermined. When you say undetermined, it means, I really feel it is going down this path, but I don't have enough concrete evidence to say so. And in this case, I had a strong belief she was killed prior to being hung up, but I couldn't prove that.
Police and prosecutors had brought in the case as a potential suicide, but after extensive study, Jimbelik classified the hanging death as undetermined. In this case, the autopsy revealed that the girl had been sexually assaulted before her death, and the chain used to hang her had been tied in an elaborate manner, showing design and sophistication that would not be expected from a child. The girl's father was later convicted of sexual assault and sentenced to 50 years. A judge, however, ruled that the manner of death was not admissible in the case.
With hanging and strangulation, so things placed around the neck. The mechanism is that the vessels on the side of the neck are constricted with pressure, so that blood isn't flowing properly in or out of the head, and ultimately it causes a lack of oxygen to the brain. So the airway's open, you can breathe, but you have the vascular supply, pressure on the vascular supply. So if you are staging a death and you hang up the person, you're going to get marks on the neck, or if someone hangs himself, you're going to get marks on the neck from that. When you say undetermined, in a circumstance like that, it means, I can't tell if the person was killed by some asphyxial means and then hung up or not. That's what you're saying.
Author and investigator Vernon Gayberth pointed out a number of, quote, red flags in the police work in Jembelik's case, especially concerning the parents' changing statements about the timeline of their daughter's death. Initially, the mother told police she had seen her daughter alive after the father had left the house for work, but the father said he was the last person to see his daughter alive. I've noticed that in complex cases, diligent investigators often employ polygraph tests as a crime-solving tool. Gayberth writes, the detectives properly requested the father to take a polygraph examination. The parents' accounts continued to change as the investigators requested clarification and attempted to establish a timeline. It is obvious that there was collusion on the part of the mother and father to confuse and mislead the police with their contradictory and inconsistent accounts. I told Dr. Jembelik that one of the elements of her case that stood out to me was the police's use of polygraph examination on witnesses, an investigative tool that was never employed in Dammion's case. Hey, it's Claire Sanema, host of Final Days on Earth. Have you ever signed up for something and then totally forgotten about it? I just learned that 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused each month. Thanks to Rocket Money, I can see all my subscriptions in one place and cancel the ones I'm not using anymore. And now, I'm saving money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/finaldays today. That's rocketmoney.com/finaldays. rocketmoney.com/finaldays.
BizChair.com, your one-stop shop for premium commercial furniture that blends quality with affordability. From ergonomic office chairs to durable restaurant seating, we cater to diverse industries including corporate, medical, hospitality, and education. With over 20 years of experience, we offer fast shipping, exceptional customer support, and furniture solutions that stand up to high-traffic environment. Elevate your space with BizChair's vast selection of stylish, reliable, and cost-effective furniture. Visit us today at BizChair.com to transform your business.
In the Gayberth case, the police, once they had all these inconsistent statements, they did a polygraph on the father, and he failed it. There were no polygraphs taken in Dammion's case to see if deception was indicated.
Right.
And it seems like a missed opportunity just as an investigative tool.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think there could have been a little more on the investigative aspect of it.
I feel like this responsibility because people keep contacting me and bringing up other things, and I'm like, I want to, close the loop as much as I can on Dammion's case. And I mean, really, as you presented, the best case scenario in my mind would be if the medical examiner would rule it undetermined and allow, open the door for the police to do these other investigative steps, then it could completed in a way that would be much more satisfying. Whatever the conclusion might be.
Exactly.
I asked Dr. Jembelik to look at Dammion's case file including the autopsy and scene photos. After reviewing them, she said there was nothing about Dammion's body that raised her alarm bells for foul play.
There's no injuries on the body of any significance beyond the hanging. There are petechial hemorrhages in the face. Those are seen when, the blood is maybe pumping from the carotid still into the head, but not draining as well back through the venous system, and so you get these little burst blood vessels there. But that's consistent with the ligature, that's consistent with the hanging. Also, there doesn't seem to be struggle on him, around him, or even with the ligature itself. It's a very clean mark from being placed around the neck and then the person dying.
I told Dr. Jimbelik about two alternate theories of asphyxiation, based on witness statements from events at the party. The idea that Dammion was accidentally rendered unconscious with a chokehold, or through the use of an oxygen deprivation mask that was present at the party. I asked her if she thought Dammion's injuries would present differently if either one of those methods of asphyxiation had been employed before his body was hung in a jumper cable noose.
And that's the one thing that is kind of curious with him, with that situation, because that's what people are alleging, that, that went awry, and then they didn't know what to do. So whether it was a chokehold or whether it was this face mask, oxygen deprivation mask, same idea, and with asphyxia, asphyxia doesn't leave much in the way of findings. One thing that you become suspicious about are petechial hemorrhages, but they're not pathognomonic. They're not the exact, the bullet in the body. They are there, and they can be there from different types of asphyxia, and sometimes they can be more prominent when the blood vessels are congested with something around the neck. But by themselves, they may suggest something, but it's not the only thing, that you need to look at. So asphyxia deaths are difficult and do require, thorough investigation. I agree with you that it is complex, and I'm the first person to say we have to look, leave no stone unturned, really, because the forensic pathologist in particular is the patient's advocate. We're the decedent's advocate, and we want to get the truth out. We want to know what happened to the person. They are talking to us through the scene, through their body, through the examination, through the autopsy, and so it's very important to get it right. We want to hear them clearly. I guess it's just that the hanging itself is not suspicious. If all I had to look at was the scene and the autopsy, I would say I don't see anything suspicious about this. And when we sign a death certificate with the cause and the manner of death, in other words, the injury that created the death, and then the how of it, how did it happen, the suicide. When we sign that on a death certificate, it's within a reasonable degree of forensic certainty. So it's not 100%. It's close to as we can get, but it can be, a few percent doubt there. You can't answer every single question so that it's 100% certainty. And that's true in every case. You just have to look at all of the evidence and all of the findings and put it all together and say, this is the best answer I can give within a reasonable degree of forensic certainty.
Yeah, it's an art. It's not like mathematics, right? We can't do it as simple as an accounting equation and say this is definitely 2 + 2 = 4 100% of the time.
Right. Certainly any new information that comes up or other things are evaluated, can be reviewed. Things can be changed. They can be amended. The death certificate can be changed if there's new information to indicate otherwise.
In 2019, a new coroner was elected in Gunnison County after Frank Vader retired. Vader was the one who ruled Dammion's case a suicide. Michael Barnes is now the chief death investigator and would have standing to review the Dammion Hurd case, if he chooses to.
When I was chief, I had, maybe at least a few times a year, families or doctors or police coming back to me with, "Hey doc, this case that was ruled like this before. Can you take a look at it?" So, there's nothing stopping the family, who I know are unhappy with the ruling.
Right.
There's nothing stopping them from approaching the new medical examiner.
Yeah.
With a letter, like, could you please relook at this case done by your predecessor? Whatever, different information has come up since then. And I don't know, people are pretty busy, and sometimes people blow you off, and they may say no, but it's worth a shot, and maybe that might get some wheels moving.
Getting Dammion's cause of death reviewed by the new Gunnison County coroner is a tall order of business, but I agree with Dr. Jimbelic that it's worth a shot. One of the biggest challenges in a small-town case like Dammion's is the way that so many people are intertwined. Under normal circumstances, the fact that everybody is connected is one of the reasons why people love living in a tight-knit community like Gunnison. But when controversy strikes, it can get complicated fast. Case in point, hiker Linda Nienhauser, the eyewitness who reported seeing multiple people with Dammion's body at Cabin Creek before it was discovered by police. She was also a Gunnison County employee, the finance director, and when she died in 2021, her obituary mentioned Frank Vader, the coroner who ruled Dammion's death a suicide, as her close friend. If you recall, Linda and Frank visited the scene of Dammion's death together, without law enforcement present and without recording their conversation, before the ruling of suicide was determined. That decision was questionable on its own, but now knowing that Linda and Frank were close friends makes it a serious conflict of interest. According to reporting by the Gunnison Country Times, Michael Barnes worked under Frank Vader as his deputy coroner for 3 years before taking office as his hand-picked successor. Michael and Frank also worked together at Drug Test West, a Gunnison company that Michael founded. All that to say, the connections in Gunnison run deep, and any decision to go against the grain and challenge the findings in Dammion's case will be a difficult one. But I'm not giving up on Gunnison officials to do the right thing. If Dammion really did commit suicide, then there's nothing to be afraid of in exploring all the options. If that's the truth, then that's where all the inquiries will lead. In light of witness statements about Dammion being in a chokehold before his disappearance, and because of the presence of an oxygen deprivation mask at the party, I believe his manner of death deserves to be reevaluated by the new medical examiner. Part of that review should include listening to the only recorded statement that law enforcement made with Linda Nienhauser before her death, in which she clearly stated she saw a second vehicle, 2 bicycles, and another person crouching near Dammion's body. I believe until law enforcement can identify the owner of the white truck and question them about their presence at the scene, we will never know what truly happened to Dammion Hurd, and who, if anyone, is responsible for his death. Thank you so much for listening to my first season of Final Days on Earth, The Life and Death of Dammion Hurd. While I'll continue to update you on developments in his case, I'm excited to tell you about my all-new second season, launching next week on May 10th. Here is an exclusive sneak peek. Jennifer Harris disappeared from Bonham, Texas on Mother's Day 2002. At just 28, Jennifer had her whole life ahead of her, but looks can be deceiving.
And so she came over and then told me, "You're not going to believe, the mess I'm in."
On the final night of Jennifer Harris's life, she left the house to visit a friend. She never returned.
Have you ever known Jennifer to take off?
The secrets in the Jennifer Harris case have been hidden for 20 years.
When someone disappears, you have to look at who would benefit from their disappearance.
It's time to finally discover what happened to Jennifer Harris and who is responsible for her death.
I just think that you want just as badly as we do to have justice.
Coming May 10th, Final Days on Earth, Season 2, The Life and Death of Jennifer Harris. Available wherever you get your podcasts. Final Days on Earth is recorded in Dallas, Texas for Cold Case Productions in partnership with Podcast One and Live by Live. Each episode is written, reported, and produced by me, Claire Sandomal. Original theme music composed and performed by Riley Simmons. Songs licensed from PremiumBeat.com are Bending Truth and A Thin Line. Editorial consultant is Lucy Scott of LucyMedia.com. Additional production help from Amber Robinson, Janice Sue, and Elise Weber. Executive producers are Sharon Richards and me, Claire Sandomal. Special thanks to Dr. Mary Jumbelik for talking to me in this episode.
Ah, the sizzle of McDonald's sausage. It's enough to make you crave your favorite breakfasts. Enough to head over to McDonald's. Enough to make you really wish this commercial were scratch and sniff.
And if you're a sausage person, now get 2 satisfyingly savory sausage McGriddles, sausage biscuits, or sausage burritos for just $3.33. Or mix and match. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.